Hello there, and thank you for watching the next video of web penetration testing with Kali Linux. In this video we are going to talk about OWASP and top 10 vulnerabilities on OWASP. OWASP is basically the Open Web Application Security Project, which is an online community that they produce articles, documentation, methodologies, tools, and technologies around web application security in particular. Top 10 vulnerabilities on OWASP are the most famous and important part of the OWASP or OWASP, and they basically highlight the most critical vulnerabilities to be considered as part of web application development. We're going to talk about these top 10 very briefly, and we will cover them later in the following sections in more detail. Vulnerability number 1 is injection. So if the application is not secure enough, basically a remote attacker could inject some data to your application, whether it is code, that data, or whether it is a database entry or something. Your application could be vulnerable to injection. Broken authentication. So if the authentication obviously doesn't work on your application, obviously there would be unauthorized access to your application. Sensitive data exposure. So obviously if there is sensitive data exposed to the web without you wanting it, whether it is PII or PHI or any kind of sensitive information, that is basically the third vulnerability on OWASP top 10 list. Number 4 is XML external entities. So you're probably familiar with the XML. Basically, entities could be defined internally or externally on the XML, and if we do it externally, there is a bit of a risk in there that has to be considered as part of XML development. Broken access control. If we don't really have enough and proper access controls on the application sections and application basically access to the database, potentially we could have expose basically one part of the application to an unauthorized user. Security misconfiguration. So this is obviously if we don't set up our web application server like IIS or Apache, or probably just the markup language, the language that we're using, this could be a security risk as well. Cross-site scripting or XSS. So basically if we don't have enough controls, that a remote attacker could run a script on our server or on our application. That is called cross-site scripting, and that's a pretty common vulnerability as well. Insecure deserialization. So serialization is used to save a state of an object on an application and just recover it again from that same state when we continue working. So doing that in an insecure manner could be another risk for application. Using components with known vulnerabilities. So this is pretty obvious. So within application development, we often use other components or modules, and if they are vulnerable, obviously it would make our application vulnerable as well. And insufficient logging and monitoring. So obviously if we don't have appropriate level of logging and monitoring, we're not able to identify potential attack or potential incidents on our application, which could be considered a risk. So that was top 10. On the next video we're going to start talking about vulnerability assessment and penetration testing on web applications. Thank you for watching this video, and I will be with you in the next one.